everybody. Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy Zuma. There you go, buddy. And this is Zuma's roadmap to success. Now, basically, the video above is going to kind of how we introduce or set the session up. The Guardian said that this is really an amazing session for him. I am a behavior consultant, so I'm pretty good at what I do. But if a guest coming over, I would have them watch the above video and recreate that first part. And again, like I mentioned, do the treat trail several times. I do this with a lot of dogs, a dog that was surrendered to me. If I have someone come over, I'll do it 2 or 3 times that day or the day and before and that day. So by the time that somebody's at the end of it, the dog's already kind of warmed up and already knows this particular exercise. All right, so we first started off by going over marker words. A marker word that we used here is yes. So the marker word should come the instant the dog does the thing that you want. Unless the thing you want has duration, then it can come to the conclusion. So for example, I'm going to have him do an SIT. I'm going to lure him into an SIT. Yes. So that as soon as his butt hits the ground, I said yes, then I put a treat in his mouth, or I could pet him. He likes being petted on the chest, not on the chin, but in this oval area is the best place to pet most dogs. We went over a marking, loading the marker, loading a clicker. So remember, by the time you guys see it, you should have done this, but make sure you do this about 5 times each for the clicker, 5 times each for the yes, and just walk around room to room. Yes, give him a treat. Yes, give him a treat. Walk for maybe about 12 treats, 5 different times for the clicker, 5 different times for the marker word. You want to do it so often, so when usually 5 times is enough for each one, but you want to say yes, and just like that, he turns and looks at you. That's the indicator. And we use that, like I said, when he does the things you want. We also went over hand targeting. Boop. That's not what you're supposed to do. So we've been here a little bit long, but the hand targeting is we throw our hand, yes, and then we put the treat on the hand. Don't say boop or whatever the cue is unless you're 90% certain the dog's going to do it. I'm glad I mic'd myself. I'm glad I mic'd myself up, yes. We'll give you another bully stick from our buddies over at Best Bully. And that should keep you occupied, buddy. But he is, we also went over the positive interrupter. So I believe he does a little demand barking. And so here, we'll give you another one with an elbow in it. Yes. I should have said taken, take, and then when he takes it, I say yes. So eventually take can become a cue, pick something up. All right, now I have videos for all this stuff, including take, div, and drop if you want them, so let me know. I'm happy to share them with you. I go over hand targeting because it's a nice way for you to practice using your marker word as well as when to introduce the cue. So don't use the cue unless you're 90% certain the dog's going to do the thing, and avoid repeating the cue word over and over again. If they don't do it, then just lure them into whatever it is and just say the marker word consistently. And then you want me to hold it and you can chew on it? I'll do that for you, buddy. This might be something you have your guest do if he's comfortable. If he brings it to your guest like this, that's an indication I feel pretty comfortable. I can trust you with this high value item. And you can also get, like I said, a bully stick holder. So that way he can it makes it easy for him to do it. I think he's kind of a little bit of a pampered dog. He likes people holding his bully stick. All right, so for the, when I'm going to introduce a cue, a lot of times I'll warm it up. So if I'm introducing, luring a dog into a sit, I lure him to sit, say yes when the butt hits the ground, give him a treat. Step away, lure him into the sit, say yes. Do that 3 or 5 times. Then I would say sit, lure him into the sit, say yes, and then give him the mark when his butt hits the ground, and then give him the treat. So if you do it 4 or 5 times in a row, kind of helps them. I know what's coming next, and you're sneaking the cue in first. I'd like the Guardians to make a list of the command cues and say vocabulary to each other if we're using a different version of come here instead of come, for example. And so after a while, we just consolidate his vocabulary. It makes it easier for him to understand. And if we're using the marker word, it also helps accelerate his learning and reduces a little anxiety for him, which will increase his confidence, and that will help with a lot of the behavior problems you're having. We also went over celebrating and what I call the manners exercise. So celebrating is rewarding Zuma every time he does anything that's a desirable behavior when we don't ask him to do it. So he comes to us, yes, and pet him on his chest. He sits down, yes, lays down, eye contact, drinks his water. If he's pooping or peeing, say at the conclusion of it. And then after a while, if you can anticipate that he's going to pee, then you say, the word I use is business. So I sneak that word in, then he just drops down and drops a dog, and then I say yes and give him a treat afterwards. And so now I have a cue, and I can ask for the behavior on, I would say on demand, but I can ask for the behavior. We'll see if the dog's going to do it. And the more they're rewarded, the more they're likely to do it, although you can only poop so much. So let me see. So celebrating is the watchword I like you to use with each other. So if one of you if Zuma walked up to me and I didn't see it, and my partner says celebrate, I would say yes and pet him on his chest. You guys probably shouldn't do that, but you guys should definitely do that with each other to help yourself get in the habit of doing that. I'd also like you to, when you do have guests come over, a little other thing, don't stand up if you're the guest. Make sure you have a treat. Give them the treat and then stand up or throw a treat a couple feet away. Distance makes dogs feel a little bit more comfortable. And again, always increase distance anytime he's reactive. Here you go, buddy. Also, moving slow can be an indication he feels uncomfortable. I'm just going to give it to you. You're going to have to chew it yourself. Okay, let me see. And try to avoid your guests' big movements or big exaltations, and you might actually curate your guests and not bring somebody over who. I was just with a friend of mine yesterday, and I was on the phone in a pharmacy, and like he turned to me and goes, the people at the window can't hear what they're saying because you're talking too loud. So maybe don't invite somebody like me that talks too loud. Have somebody who's a little bit more quiet talker. And keep a visit short and successful. I'd rather have a short, I guess we didn't talk about in the video, but go on that little walk that we went around. So when you go the walk, after about a dozen or so paces, try to quietly hand the leash to your friend. The friend should kind of hold him the same place in the same way. Or if he stops to sniff, maybe on that visit is going well, you guys can continue walking while your guest is there holding a leash while he's sniffing, and then you and Zuma, the guest and Zuma, walk towards where the guardians are. So it's just a nice way to help, and go for like a block walk before you come inside. When you come inside, they should give a treat right outside the door to the building and right inside the door of the building. Right outside the door to the apartment, right inside the door of the apartment. I'd also like you to teach him to catch. So do this with his kibble. If you're doing the raw, just chop it in little bits and make it a nice, easy underhand toss. So all he does is open his mouth and it goes in. You say marker word when it goes in his mouth, and when he's good at it, then you can start throwing a little bit to the side. This is a great exercise that you can have guests do with Zuma, because Zuma can do it whatever distance he feels comfortable. It's a game, and he gets rewarded and reinforced for hanging out with guests. I'd also like you to get a Mega Paw Tricky Trainer treat ball and a lick mat, and start giving the lick mat a couple with peanut butter. You can use yogurt, frozen yogurt as well, but do that a couple times without the guests, and then every time the guests come over, he gets the Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver, and then in the apartment, he gets the lick mat. So now that releases those endorphins, makes him feel good, and that's associated another positive thing that happens when guests come over. We also talked about manners. I guess I kind of started talking about celebrating, which is rewarding the dog when it does behaviors that you don't ask for but that are desirable. Manners is Zuma likes to jump up on people or demand bark or paw for attention. And although he's kind of cute, he is kind of demanding it. And just like mothers do when a little kid says, "Mommy, I don't want this food. Go make me some chicken nuggets." Mom says, "Do you want to ask for that again? Mommy, can I please have some chicken nuggets?" And mom tries to go and do that for the little kid. So I'd like you to think of him scratching or jumping up. You kind of a little bit of a slightly inappropriate, not huge, but we want to just tell him to sit one time. And if he sits, we say yes, and we pet him on his chest. If he doesn't do it, we go back to reading our book, watching TV, checking emails, or whatever it is. And we're not punishing him. We're not saying, "Oh, buddy, I would have pet you." No problem. You don't have to sit. But if you do sit, I'll reward you. If you don't sit, I'm on to my next thing. And after a while, he'll start sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When he does, say that marker word and pet him. That's the celebrating aspect, and that's what your goal is. Let me see, what else? We went over exercise. Let me see, creative forms of exercise, or physical exercise like walks, tug of war. But if he gets too excited, make sure you stop. Wait for his energy to pass below 5, probably like closer to a 3, then re-engage. And you can come up with a cue for this as well. If you hold out the thing, you know he's going to get it, say shark, and he comes and grabs a hold, and you tug, 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 and when he gets too excited, you just drop it, or you can tug, 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 and then you can grab a treat, hold it to his nose. When he drops it, say yes, and put the treat in his mouth. What are we doing? We're reinforcing dropping things. And after a while, when you hold that there and you know he's going to do it, you can drop and hold it to his nose. He drops it, and you say yes and give him the treat. Now you've introduced a take as well as a give or a drop. And so that makes you don't have to pull things away from dogs. You really don't want to do that. That can create a resource guarding situation. Let me see, what else? Manners, going back to I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but for the manners thing. So say manners to each other. If you notice the dog jumps up on your partner, say manners to your partner. If they're petting, they say stop and say sit. And again, if he doesn't, then you go back to doing what you're doing. But after a while, if you get in the habit of celebrating in manners, every time you pet Zuma, or the majority of times you pet him, you're rewarding him for the things you want. The more dogs do things, the more they're likely to continue doing them, and you get them in a behavior pattern that is what you're looking for. Let me see. Also be careful about your pronunciation. Yes and yes are 2 different words, so say it consistently however you want to say it. Getting back to exercise. Sniff walks are a hybrid between physical exercise and mental stimulation. Remember, the nose controls roughly 60% of a dog's brain. And so if they're sniffing, as long as it's safe to do so, let them do so. We can also do playing fetch. And so when you're playing fetch, again, do an object that he really likes. Throw it. When he gets it, show him you have a treat. When he hopefully brings it back over to you, hold it to his mouth. And when he drops it, say yes, put it in his mouth. And if he gets in a rhythm, he's going and doing that, blowing it back and forth. Fetch as you throw it. He goes and grabs it. You come back over, hold it up, and eventually go grab it, bring it back to you, and drop it. If you teach him how to fetch, you can get like an eye fetch, set it up at the top of the stairs, and point it down the stairs. He can play fetch with himself. He's running up and down the stairs. Make sure your vet says he's okay with that sort of movement, but he looks pretty healthy to me. Let me see. We can also get him a doggy backpack and put a little bit of weight on it. Again, check with your vet to make sure your vet's comfortable with that. Try to do those happy vet visits while we're talking about vets. So every time you go to DP, go down there and take him to the vet. Make sure it's not right after you get out of the car. Maybe he's got a chance to rest. But go there and do a bunch of find-its in the parking lot or in the grass, and then do it in grass leading up to the door. And if you can do it and time it out, if you're there when that vet clinic's closing down, hey, can we come and work a little? I worked with a dog behaviorist who gave us some tips. Do it in the lobby a little bit. And then eventually, if you can, and if you're down there for a day or two, I would try to do 2 or 3 vet visits while you're there since it's not local. And then eventually one of the guardians is actually in the exam room. So you're telling find it in the lobby during their closing time. They don't really care. They're not talking to the dog. The vet techs are not engaged. We're just making it a positive thing to go in the vet clinic. And eventually I go in the room and, oh my God, one of my guardians was in here. Oh, it's the best day ever. And then you do it the second time, maybe a next visit. The guardian's in there with the vet, and the vet is doing what I did in the video above. The vet's sitting there quietly, sideways from the door. The vet has the high-value treats, and just hold a treat out, hold a treat out. It's hard for vets. You might have to get a vet tech to do that. Vets are pretty darn busy. But if you can explain, a lot of vet clinics will actually do these sort of things. We call it a happy vet visit because, if the dog is more comfortable, they're going to be more relaxed, and they're less likely to get bit. Okay, let me see. Getting back to exercise, that's physical exercise would be sniff walks, playing tug of war, games of fetch, or using a doggy backpack. There's also mental stimulation. I would get him that snuffle mat that I showed you, feed him some of his kibble, and I think you could probably, they're washable, so you could probably do it with the raw diet, just chop it up into little bits, put it in there, so he's got to work for his food, what boosts his confidence and drains energy, and slows down the feeding process. Great celebrating going on behind the camera, I love that. And then let me see, we also talked about dog consent, watch for cutoffs. Well, let me compartmentalize this and finish up the mental stimulation. So we can also get one of those Omega Paw Tricky Trainer treat balls or other balls, Weeple Wobbles that you can put some food in there. That's another great thing for him to have when guests are here. So he's preoccupied doing that instead of barking at the guests. We also went over the positive, let me see. We also went over cookie in the corner. I have a video for that. That's where you threw one treat. You say, find it as you throw it. When he licks it up, you say yes. And then you show him you have another treat and say, come. He comes back to you. Next time you throw 2 treats, 3 treats, 4. I usually work up to about 6. Don't do it in places you don't want him to look. And eventually, when he's away, hide the treats in that area. And when he comes down, you say, find it, and just sweep your hand in that direction. He starts looking for them. That sets you up for the stuff we did outside. And make sure you do the find its. I would try to do 2 or 3 on every block when you don't need to. So that way, when you do need it, you can breadcrumb him away from people, and he's just all about it. And he was a little hesitant when we were doing the video above because he hasn't done it very much. Well, he's done it a lot. Boom, 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 boom. And then you move him away from people. Let me see. So that's called Cookie in the Corner, and I'm happy to send you a video on that one. I'd like you to Google scent games and try to find 2 scent games where you can do different things where he's using his nose. Drains a lot of energy, and you don't have to get that exercise yourself. Let me see. We also, let me see. What else did we go over? We went over the positive interrupter. So if the dog is barking, all attention, remember all behavior is trying to achieve something, number 1. That's a great job. That's a positive interrupter. So remember, if your dog is doing something, ask yourself, what is the dog trying to achieve? Is there a way for me to allow them to get it without the symptom or the barking or other behavior I don't want? Like he barks, maybe we teach him to snag. Every time he grabs a toy, we say yes and pet him. After a while, I anticipate him getting a toy, we say snag, and he goes, grabs the toy. Well, now, if there's a sound, you say snag, and he grabs something, he can't bark. He's got something in his mouth. Squeaker toys are pretty desirable for that one because they feel like they're killing little baby bunny rabbits. He looks like he has some terrier in him. Let me see. But the positive interrupter, we want to interrupt the behavior because all attention is validating and rewarding unless it's abusive. So if he hears somebody barking or knocking outside the door and he looks, he's about to bark, he looks at you, and then you do the hand target. He runs over to you. Got to practice hand targeting. And then you put the treat there. Then you can give him a bully stick, a lick mat, take him for a walk, do something else. So if we don't give him a replacement behavior, he's going to go right back to it. But for the sounds outside the door, he'll probably be pretty good at ignoring those. And you can always use that counter conditioning technique I went over. Treat, and then knock a little bit louder, treat, and we're doing it on a table or somewhere away from the door. But eventually have one of you guys outside the door with the earbud and just say, now. They knock lightly and you give them a treat. And eventually you work up a point where it sounds like the police are outside and he's like, somebody around here owes me a treat. I'm not barking because I don't look at that as a negative. Let me see what else. I'm trying to think. Rules, I guess I talked a little bit about rules. One of the rules I like to do is a pre-max. Pre-max principle means that the less desirable behavior earns me a more desirable behavior. Didn't go over this in session, so I'll go over it right now. I go to the door, I tell the dog to sit one time. If the dog does not sit within 2 seconds, I walk away, drop the leash, sit down on your couch, check something out. Wait 1 minute, then go back to the door, ask for a sit again, one time. If he sits, say yes and open the door. And then we go for the walk. If he doesn't sit, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 16 minutes. I'm only asking one time. When he sits, I open the door, we go out and walk. If he doesn't sit, he doesn't get what he wants. There's no punishment, but he's not getting the reward that he wants. If you do it outside, you have to stand outside with him, so it's better to do it inside your house. But also, other things like helping the dog practice self-restraint, like not being allowed to be within 7 feet of anyone who's eating a food. Don't feed people food from the plate because that kind of rewards them to do so. Let me see. Not being allowed in the kitchen while we're preparing food. So some things where he has to restrain himself, self-control exercises. There's a game called It's Your Choice. I have a video I can send you on that one, or something called the bucket game, which teaches the dog to be calm. The more that he practices restraining himself, not us restraining him restraining himself, that makes it easier for him to stop barking on his own, jumping up on people and things along those lines. So try to incorporate a couple rules, not just to be a jerk, but to help him practice some self-restraint and self-control. Now, there's probably some stuff here that you're going to forget. A lot of people are like, I'm just going to do this for a month, and I'm going to do this for a month. I would like you to try to do all of this simultaneously. It's easier, and it's more effective if you can do it all at once. And use those watchwords. Celebrate if somebody forgot to pet for desirable behavior. Manners if they're petting for undesirable behavior. Vocabulary. You might come up with your own little ones for other things as well. But if after a month or two of you get in the habit of this, you really change. And for you guys, since you just moved in a new place, it's going to be really dynamic. You can really embrace these things because the environment is different. The outside is different. So we can adopt new behaviors without the myelin sheath over the neural pathways of the old behavior patterns that you're talking about. Remember also to keep, always try to end things on a positive note. We don't want to have a great visit for 50 minutes and the 56th minute he barks. Well, that's going to be what he's going to remember the next time. When you're practicing training exercises, try to do about like 2 to 5 minutes maximum and always end on a good one. So that's, again, the bright memory, but also practicing a lot of variety in your house. Eventually you can have your guests, once you've done hand targeting enough, you do a little hand targeting, and then you have your guest do the hand targeting. Don't be afraid to get one of those touch sticks, so you can have your guest doing the touch stick so he can interact with your guest at a far enough distance where he feels comfortable. And let me see, don't ask him to sit if he doesn't feel comfortable. Remember, just allow him to move away. A lot of us, we force our dog to sit when the other dog walks by, and that can make the dog feel like they're trapped. All right, is there anything else you guys want me to go over? It's like I've done this before. I'm not, I gotta sign out, that's okay. Hey buddy, you want one more treat? Zuma, you're a pampered dog. Yes, you are. You do have the Doberman eyes looking though. Hey buddy. Okay, I got to give him 2 pieces of the Stewart's. Oh, for the Stewart's free-dried beef liver, remember to cut those into small little pieces. This is very, very rich, and he can develop pancreatitis if you give him too many of these. So I'd try to find another treat and maybe use his kibble if you can. All right, well, this is my buddy Zuma, and he's a surf dog. And this is Zuma's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.